The last concept in Lesson 5 is actually working backwards. So rather than given the equation and finding the slope and the y-intercept, what we're going to be given is the 2 points on a line, and we have to actually write the equation of the line. To do that, we're going to need the slope. So that's going to be our first step. I usually teach this with teaching the point slope formula for a line. You can do this with the slope-intercept equation of a line, and if you already know how to do that, that's fine. But I find students make less mistakes if they do it with this formula. So let's get started. We're asked in example 1 to find the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line that passes through the points 1, -2, and 4, 5. So what we need to do first is find the slope. So first we're going to find m. So let's call this point 1. We'll call this point 2. So this will be x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So remember, m is equal to the difference of the y's on top over the difference of the x's on bottom. So that's going to be 5 minus -2, be really careful with those signs, over 4 minus 1, which will give me 7 over 3. Now, if I'm going to use this formula, I now have 7/3, and I also have point 1, so I can plug in x sub 1, which would be 1, and y sub 1, which would be -2. I don't really need this point to write the equation now that I have the slope, so I'll just disregard it. So I'm going to write y minus -2, again, be careful with those negatives, equals 7/3 times x minus 1. Notice that I keep this x and this y in the equation because every equation is going to have x and y in it. What I replace is the ones with the subscript, x sub 1 and y sub 1. Now I just need to clean this up a little bit and put it in what they ask for, which is slope-intercept form, which remember is y equals mx plus b. But before I even worry about solving for y, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So y minus -2 is the same as y plus 2. Remember, 2 negatives make a positive. And then I'm going to distribute 7/3 to both of these terms. So that's going to be 7/3 x minus 7/3. Now that I have it cleaned up, I'm going to solve for y to put it in slope-intercept form. So to solve for y, what I need to do is just get y by itself, which means this plus 2 needs to go to the other side. Since it's plus 2, I'm going to do the opposite, or subtract 2. This 2 doesn't have an x in it, so I'll be subtracting it from the constant term, 7/3. So these are going to cancel, which is going to give me y equals 7/3 x, and then -7/3 minus 2. Let's do that work over here. Is equal to, there's a couple different ways we can do it. One is to find a common denominator, which would be 3, and 2 would be 6 over 3, right? 1 times 3 will give you the 3 on bottom, so we have to do 2 times 3, which would give me 6 on top. So that's going to give me -13/3. So minus 13/3. The other way is to think about it as, well, 7/3 is equal to If we change this to a mixed number, 3 will go into a 7 twice with 1 left over. So I have negative 2 1/3 minus 2, which gives me negative 4 1/3. And then if I change this back to an improper fraction, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 gives me 13, so negative 13/3. You can also use your calculator to do this, and I can show you that once we get back into class. All right, let's do one more together. Again, it's the same process. We're given 2 points. This time I'm going to call this point 1, and I'm going to call this point 2. Just to show you that it doesn't really matter which one you call point 1 and point 2. Don't mean to confuse you. X sub 1, y sub 1 would be those coordinates, and this would be x sub 2, y sub 2. So remember, the first thing we're going to do is find the slope, and that's the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. So that's going to be 3 minus negative 8. Again, be careful with those signs. And then on the bottom, I have negative 2 minus 1. 3 minus negative 8 was the same as 3 plus 8, or 11, over negative 3. And remember, we don't keep the negative in the bottom, so I'll write that as negative 11 over 3. All right. Now I'm going to use my formula, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And remember what we're plugging in. The slope, which we just found, and then our x value from our point 1, which would be 1, and that's going to go here, and our y value from point 1, which is here, and that's going to go here. But we don't plug in anything for x and y. All right, so that's going to give me y minus negative 8 equals negative 11/3 times x minus 1. Now I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Remember, these two negatives make it y plus 8. And then I'm going to distribute this to both terms inside the parentheses. So that's negative 11/3 x. But a negative times a negative, this time is going to make it plus 11/3. Now to solve for y, the last thing I'm going to do is subtract 8 from both sides. 8 doesn't have an x in it, so I don't subtract it from here. I just subtract it from here. These are going to cancel, which leaves me with y. Negative 11/3 x. And then if I think of negative 8, with a common denominator, it's going to be negative 24 over 3, right? Isn't that equal to negative 8? Think of this over 1. You have to multiply by 3, and that's where negative 24 came from. So it's a positive 11 minus 24, which is going to give me negative 13/3. And that's the answer.